While the ending of God of War Ragnarok was very satisfying, that wasn't how it was actually supposed to end. There was actually a completely different ending planned out, but the writers didn't stick with it. So, what was this ending, and why did they decide to change it? That's exactly what we'll be looking at in today's video, so let's get right into the video. First up, God of War originally had a different ending. In the initial ending of God of War, Surtur proposed that Kratos and Atreus help him start Ragnarok by fusing him with his wife, Sinmara. But this requires Kratos to do something crazy, stabbing Sinmara's heart with the Blades of Chaos, which are infused with Surtur. The deleted ending for God of War was pretty intense. Atreus and Kratos had to stab Surtur in order to trigger Ragnarok, but it didn't go according to plan. They were desperate for a solution, so Atreus decided to ask for help from Sinmara, Surtur's lover. But the giantess had just lost Surtur, and she was very reluctant to help. That's why Atreus decided to lie to her, saying that Odin killed Surtur instead of them. Sinmara was enraged, to say the least. She sought revenge against the Allfather for taking away someone she loves. Sinmara took a very risky step and fused her heart with Surtur's in order to start Ragnarok again, a decision that would later haunt both of them. While Odin was finally killed, Kratos had to confront Atreus about lying to Sinmara. To make matters worse, it was all done in order to avenge Brock's death. After the game wrapped up, Kratos was meant to set off on a post-game mission. He had to find both Surtur and Sinmara's hearts and place them at the spark of the world. Freya and Mimir were worried that this would bring about Ragnarok, the destruction of all 9 realms, but Kratos decided to take the risk and reunite the 2 hearts, saying that he would figure out how to deal with Ragnarok if it happened. Up next, so why didn't they choose this ending? If this proposed deleted ending was included in God of War, it would have definitely been an interesting twist. Plus, it would have been a great conclusion to the story, so why didn't they go ahead with it? Well, they decided against this version mainly because it was a lot darker than the intended outcome. It would have also completely ruined Atreus' character arc, which focused on helping Kratos move away from his revenge-driven ways and focus instead on the bigger picture. It was also clear at the end of the game that Kratos would do just about anything to stop his son from constantly seeking vengeance like he once did. If Atreus did go down the same road as his father, then Kratos would have never come to realize that he was wrong in trying to shield his son from the world. But by the end of the story, Kratos and Atreus had a heartwarming moment where Kratos accepted his mistake. So we should all be happy with the ending that was actually chosen. Otherwise, we'd be in for a roller coaster of emotions. Now let's move on to some of the Easter eggs from God of War Ragnarok. First up, Charlie returns. There was a lot of moments that made God of War memorable, but one of the biggest was probably when they discovered that the Witch of the Woods house was actually a giant tortoise named Charlie. This majestic creature made its return in God of War Ragnarok, but with a heartbreaking story. In Fimbulwinter, Charlie was slowly freezing to death after being left alone by Freya, who was dealing with her own fair share of issues. Fortunately, Atreus was able to save Charlie in the end. If Kratos and Freya head back to the house in the next game, Freya is gonna have to do a lot more than just apologize for what she did to poor old Charlie. Up next, Kratos mentioned his brother. Kratos is known for being an emotionally closed-off person, so it's understandable that he wouldn't be keen on discussing his past, especially considering just how dark it was. But when speaking with Freya, Kratos talks of his brother Deimos in high regard. Deimos was teased in the first God of War game and became a tragic figure in the sequel, Ghost of Sparta. He's Kratos' younger brother who was killed by Thanatos in a heartbreaking story of brotherhood. This was actually the reason why Kratos went off on his quest for vengeance against Olympus and literally destroyed the realm altogether. Coming up, even the boat captain was mentioned. Kratos is clearly no stranger to suffering himself, but if we're being honest, he's also caused a lot of pain to others in the past. After Kratos freed the Lungbacher, a boat captain from long ago came to mind. If you've been around the God of War series enough, this man is probably no stranger to you. In fact, he's been making appearances, or at least has been mentioned, in 6 different titles so far. It all started in the very first game, when Kratos actually pushed him into a giant Hydra's belly and stole his key. Kratos finally realizing how wrong he was for pushing the boat captain is some pretty major character development, especially since he didn't really seem to care about it for the last games. Moving on, Kratos talks about Greece. Like we mentioned before, Kratos isn't exactly one for sharing stories from his past, especially when it comes to Greece. After all, he's the guy who single-handedly destroyed Greece, so it makes sense that he'd be hesitant to recount tales of death and destruction with his son Atreus, Mimir, and Freya around. But as Kratos gets more comfortable in his newfound role as a father and starts to open up more, he begins sharing his past adventures with them. He talked about his days in ancient Greece, telling old stories from his previous games. He told tales of the Sisters of Fate, Medusa, and more, all linking together to form the canon that these games are part of a single story. Kratos' adventures and struggles in the past were exciting enough to captivate everyone listening. Next up, Kvasir's poems. God of War Ragnarok has an array of unique collectibles, including Kvasir's poems. These poems aren't just your typical run-of-the-mill verses. They reference reference other PlayStation titles in the most subtle yet creative way. Not only are the words of each poem inspired by these games, but so too is the cover art. Each poem features a different image from one of these titles, so it's like you're getting a little taste of your favorite games in each verse. These poems were a way for Santa Monica Studios to show appreciation for other PlayStation games and developers, with plenty of references to The Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding, Ratchet and Clank, and many more. Not to mention the dining cups. God of War Ragnarok has plenty of artifacts that can be found and traded for gold with the dwarves. These relics come from the original God of War, where players can locate cups in Brock and Sindri's realm. Many of these cups have been transported through time from the first game and appear on the dining table in Sindri's house in the sequel. This is a pretty cool reference to Kratos' collecting skills from the previous games, and it's nice to see that his hard work actually paid off. Coming up, Thor's missing tooth. God of War Ragnarok is an incredibly detailed game that allows players to explore the 9 realms of Norse mythology on their journey to save the world from destruction. From Midgard and Asgard to Vanaheim, it was clear the development team at Sony Santa Monica put a lot of thought into crafting each realm and making them unique. The game is actually so detailed that players were able to find Thor's missing tooth in the snow. It's a small detail, sure, but one that speaks to the level of care and attention given to craft this virtual world. Players have gone crazy over it, with many posting about it on social media and even catching the attention of Kratos' God of War Ragnarok voice actor. It just shows you how intricate and immersive these game worlds can be, with even the smallest of details sparking joy in hearts of gamers. Some sharp fans have already discovered the added bonuses of a brand new photo mode from the last game, giving us an even more in-depth look at the world of God of War Ragnarok. But what about Thor's tooth? It seems to have just disappeared after the epic opening clash between Thunder and War. Maybe it was found by an unsuspecting traveler, or maybe it still remains on the field of battle as a reminder of Kratos and Thor's showdown. Finally, no one notices Odin in disguise. God of War director Aaron Williams revealed a lot of little secrets that the players would probably never find. One secret in particular was that during the earlier parts of the game, Odin was disguised as a dwarf hiding in plain sight. You only really see him for a couple of seconds, so it's pretty easy to miss. But the craziest part is when the dwarf spits from the bridge he's standing on, right onto Kratos and Atreus. Yikes. This small detail in God of War Ragnarok probably went unnoticed by many players, but those who took the time to look closely at every detail probably saw a hidden Odin. As crazy as it sounds, it's actually true. At one point in the game, there's a random dwarf looking at Kratos from afar. The shape of his head and facial features, including the signature eye patch, closely resemble Odin's. The fact that Odin could literally be anywhere in the game is so fitting for his character, always scheming and planning something. It also helps emphasize how different Odin is from other usual depictions of him, like in the Marvel movies, where he's often portrayed as a mighty warrior and benevolent figure. But in God of War Ragnarok, we can see how manipulative and antagonistic he can be due to the consequences of his actions on all the 9 realms. That's a wrap for today's video. Did you know that there was a completely different ending to God of War Ragnarok? Make sure to let us know in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos like this one. We'll see you next time.